Hello, everyone, and welcome back to week 2, part 6 of the 20 and 20 challenge. This one's going to cover the long-awaited production launch for Frank's Restaurant. We went through quite a bit of trouble to get to this point. There was, extended discussions in the Discord about some of the issues I was running into, like Webpacker being deployed to production and active storage. Unfortunately, we don't have a good solution for active storage right now. Webpacker was an easy enough fix. Active storage, it looks like in 6.1 that'll be fixed, so we won't have to worry about URLs expiring in 6.1 and onwards. But until then, which presumably would be around like June, I guess, you'll have to deal with like less than optimal SEO, because if your links to images expire, then Google can't index your website. But I might have a fix coming for that in the form of the week 3 project. I'm not entirely sure. I still have to look into it. But for today, what we're going to cover is we're going to deploy to production. We're going to use DigitalOcean spaces. So we run the server on DigitalOcean. We also have a DigitalOcean space that we're using for the active storage files. And we're going to use Webpacker on production, so Bootstrap will work. And we're also going to do some fixes to the forums and all of the other issues that we run into. Also, as I was recording this video, or the first attempt to record this video, Ruby released 2.7.1. So make sure you update your stuff if you want to. Otherwise, you'll have to do all of this with 2.7.0. But that's about it for the intro. Let's go ahead and let's jump over to the code. All right, let's go ahead and let's get started. The first thing I'll talk about is I have this DigitalOcean referral code. I'm going to be mentioning this whenever we do something in production. That way you guys can follow along for free. I'll have the code up on the screen somewhere. If you use it, you get $100 for 60 days. And then if you spend $25 after that, they also credit $25 to my account. So it does help me out. But more importantly, it gives you guys 2 months free of using DigitalOcean for following along. So that should be enough for you to learn and figure out if, hosting your own website like this is something you want to do, or you could use some other service. For this one, we're going to be using DigitalOcean Spaces as well. And for that, I guess your alternative would be like using S3 from Amazon, but it's generally the same idea, I think. So, yeah. We're going to go ahead and let's create a droplet. That's part 1. The droplet is basically your server, so this is going to be your like Linux installation or whatever. We're going to start with Ubuntu 18.04, standard, $5 a month, no volume added, and I'm going to be on New York 3. Then you can add a SSH key. I don't want to hover over these because if I hover over those checkboxes, it'll show my SSH key. And right here, it shows you the instructions you need to generate your own SSH key. So if I come over here real quick and I just type SSH-keygen, it's going to ask for a name. If you don't give it a name, it'll put it inside of this folder right here. But if you do give it a name, so I'll give this like a live demo key or something as the name. And then for a passphrase, I like to leave it blank because if you give it a passphrase, then you'll have to type in a password. And I don't feel like doing that. So if I now ls my directory, you'll see that I have this live demo key right here and right here. So in my case, I would want to cat the live demo key.pub, and that would be the key right there. But if you didn't give it a name and you just put it inside of your ID RSA, then you're going to do you're going to cat ~ssh/ID RSA.pub. And it'll be the same thing as up here, but it'll be from that folder. So you then copy this, you paste it in here, you give it a name, and then you say add SSH key. So assuming you've done that, the last step is give it a name. So we'll call this like production, or I guess restaurant maybe. Restaurant, is that not taken? Hopefully not. Okay, so we'll call it restaurant and we'll move on from here. So I'll hit create droplet and we'll go over to the spaces. So I have a space already, and this is the one I'm going to use, but I'll walk you through how to create that as well. So in the create option, it's all the way at the bottom as of the time of this recording. You select your preferred data center, you enable CDN if you so desire, and you set the public file listing to anyone. You then have to give it a name, so I went with restaurant for mine. Obviously I've already created it, and then you just hit create space and it should be good to go. The next step is to come over to your API, and you'll have a key here, but no secret key. You can go into more and regenerate the key. That'll cause you to create an entirely new secret key that you can use. And it should appear right down here. So you'll have your regular key and your secret key. So we'll be doing that in a little bit, but if you want to copy them down now, then feel free to do that. We're going to come over to our droplets for right now because we are going to need this IP address in a little bit. So I'm just going to copy this already. And then if you go over to gorails.com, and I'll have a link to this in the description, and I'll also have a link to a gist that covers all of the commands that I'm going to be entering in a little bit, where we're copying and pasting back and forth. So you guys can either follow along with this GoRails tutorial or just copy the commands off the gist in order of when they happen. But you go to GoRails, you go to Guides and Deploy Rails. You select your Linux distribution, and they'll give you the instructions here. So the first thing that they cover is setting up DigitalOcean. Now, they're not covering spaces in this, so when it comes to the spaces stuff, make sure that you're actually watching the video. But the first step is to SSH into the server. So we're going to type SSH root at, and then this DigitalOcean IP address from the server you just created. So I'll paste that in, and I'll hit enter. And then it's going to say, do you want to trust this? Just type yes. And then we'll be inside of our server. So you can hit Control and L to clear this terminal. And then we're going to add a user, call it deploy. And it's going to ask for a password. I'm just going to give my stuff the password of password in this video because I'm not planning on keeping this server running. The next step is to add the deploy user to the sudo. So we'll say add user deploy, and we'll give them sudo privileges. And then it's going to tell us to exit. Now this is the part where you're going to run into a problem. So we need to SSH-copy-ID root at, and then your IP address again. This one's going to work, but the next one's not going to work. So if I try the same thing, I say SSH-copy-ID deploy at, and then the IP address, it's going to say that our public key is denied. So the easiest way to fix this is if we SSH in as the root again. So we'll say SSH root at the IP address. We can then do a sudo nano /etc/ssh/sshd_config. And then we need to go down and find the password authentication, which by default is set to no, and we want to switch it to yes. And then we're going to do a system, we're going to do a sudo systemctl restart sshd. And then we can type Control D to leave. And we can run our SSH copy ID deploy at the IP address command. And this time it'll work just fine. You just have to put in your password that you created a little bit ago. Now we want to go back into our server. So we'll SSH in as the root one last time. Once we're in here, we can press the up arrow key to grab this command again to edit the /etc/ssh/sshd_config file. And then we'll come back down to the prompt for the password authentication. And this time we're going to change it back to no. And then we're done with that step. So now we can exit the server, and we'll just do SSH deploy at and the IP address, and we'll be logged in to the deploy user this time. But for these steps, we're going to be going through basically one of these windows at a time. So if there's a lot of cuts where you just see commands being pasted in, it's just me going through these. This usually takes me probably about 30 minutes of just watching commands happen. So if you're sitting here at one of these and your window does hang for a while, it's not just you. Like, that is just what happens here. So try to be patient, because some of these won't have progress bars. It'll just sit there with the text in the window, and you'll probably be wondering to yourself if your computer froze or something. It didn't. It's just not the friendliest of user interfaces, I guess. This one's going to prompt you to press enter. Of course, just press enter to get through with it. And then once we get to the end here, we're going to run into a command that takes a little bit to run because, as you can see here, it's installing a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to run this one, and it's going to install all of the Redis stuff, the server certificates, and all that other junk. And then once that's done, we can move on to installing Ruby. Now, if you have version 2.7.0 still, because you followed along with the previous tutorials, like as the time of these recordings, then you're going to want to come into your files, go into your gem file, and you're going to want to change this Ruby 2.7.0 to Ruby 2.7.1. And then you're going to want to come into your terminal once this is done, or in my case, I can just open up a new one. And then we'll cd into this directory, which for me is a whole thing, restaurant episode 6. So I'll switch this to 2.7.1, and then I'll just check to make sure that I'm using 2.7.1, which I'm not for some reason. So let me set the RVM default to be 2.7.1. And then I'll check Ruby-V again, and it looks like that's good. So now let's do a bundle update. So we've updated all of our gems. That's good. And now let's I'll just leave this up here. Let's come over, and it looks like my server is done running this first or this last command, this really big one. So now we can come down to the installing Ruby section, which I guess is right here because I already did that other stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is run the git clone, and then I'm just going to copy and paste a few of these other commands in here. Make sure that you're using the proper version of Ruby and that you set your global Ruby version to be the proper version. It's probably going to be a long day of updating all of these Rails projects for me, but that's the price you pay. Now this RB-env install right here for 2.7.1, this one is going to take probably about 15 minutes on its own. So, you know, go grab a cup of coffee, and I will see you on the other side of this monstrous command. Okay, now that that's done, we can set the global version to be 2.7.1, and we can do a Ruby-V to make sure that this version and this version are the same, which they are. The next step is to run gem install bundler and make sure you're doing this on your server. And then after that, we can do a gem install bundler. And here it's saying -v 1.17.3. But of course, after you run this and then you run the bundle-v command, you'll see that it's actually 2.1.4. Next step is to set up Nginx and Passenger, which of course means that we're going to be doing a few more command copy pastaroni activities, or whatever you want to call it, because apparently that's what all these tutorials just devolve into, is just a speed run of, you know, installing or copying and pasting commands to install stuff. But at this point, we're getting close to the end, so at least we have that going for us. I think this is the last lengthy command right here, and after this we should be good to go. I do have a Word document to my right to make sure that we install the DigitalOcean spaces correctly, because that was sort of a mixture of a bunch of guides that I found. I don't think there's anything in there that you guys would need to copy and paste, but it's we're going to be doing a little bit of code. I kind of wanted to do it and type it out so that it's a bit more memorable, because a lot of these commands, like, it doesn't really matter if you know what the command is to install Nginx. You're just going to Google it every time. But when it comes to actually doing the tasks for Capistrano, it does help for you to know what you're typing and what you're doing in case you need to create your own tasks. So for this one, we're going to get rid of the passenger_Ruby one, and we're going to replace it with /home/deploy/.rbenv/shims/Ruby. And then you can hit Control and O to save that, and then Control and X to exit. And then we can do a sudo service nginx start. And now if we come over to DigitalOcean and we copy this IP address and we paste it into a new tab, hopefully we see Welcome to Nginx. So if you're seeing this, then you're at least halfway there right now, because the only thing left is to make sure that we get Rails working, which is a lot easier said than done, of course. So now we're going to remove this file and our site's enabled. And then after we remove it, we're going to create our own, but we're not going to create this My App one. We're going to name this based on whatever our project is. So in my case, it's restaurant_episode_6 is what I called my Rails folder. So I'm going to do the exact same over here. I'm going to say restaurant_episode_6. So make sure yours is named similar to whatever your project is. Next, we have this Nginx block, which I'm going to paste in. And there's two locations in here where we have to do something similar. We're basically looking for anywhere where it says My App when we copy any of these commands, and we're going to be replacing it with restaurant_episode_6 or whatever your project is called. So like right here, it's /home/deploy/myapp. So we're going to replace this My App with the actual name of our application. Once you've done that, you can hit Control and O, enter, and then Control and X. And I'll hit Control and L to clear this command. And then I'll do a sudo service nginx reload. And then hopefully we're getting a 404, which is great. That's because we've switched the location, the root, and now it's in a it's in this folder that we don't have a Rails app in right now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to run the sudo apt get install blah 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 command, because we're getting ready to install Postgres. There is a MySQL version right here. If you prefer to use MySQL, then you can do that. I prefer to use Postgres. That's just personal preference. But ultimately, it is up to you guys what you decide to do. I don't want to tell you how to live your lives. But I'm going to be covering how to do the build tools for Postgres. If you need build tools for SQL, I'm not sure. But you know, if you run into a problem, that might be it. When you go to install the gem, just make sure that you're, you know, Googling for whatever the error is. So here we're creating the user. So I did sudo su -postgres, and then I typed create user -- password prompt, and then deploy. And we're just going to give, or I'm just going to give this a password of password. You obviously want to be more secure here because this is your super serious production database. So don't be like me. The next thing we're going to do is create db-o, deploy, and then the name of our application again. So in my case, it's going to be restaurant_episode_6. And then you can type exit to leave. And if you want to test this and make sure it works, you can type psql-U, deploy -W-H, and then 127.0.0.1. And like it says here, make sure to use the 127 instead of localhost when you're connecting to the database. And then after that, you can do -D and then the name of your application again. So restaurant_episode_6 for me. And then it'll ask you for your password, and then you're inside. Okay, so once we have that set up, the next step is to scroll down here, and we're going to add in Capistrano. We're also going to be doing a whole bunch of other stuff, so let's go ahead and let's move some of these windows around. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll grab these cap gems and we'll paste them in, and I'm going to paste them below simple form. I also need a gem for Postgres, so I'm going to add that right here. You could, of course, add this to a group production do, but I'm just leaving mine right here. And if you need the Postgres build tools, so let me just type that out for you. It's sudo apt-get install lib pq-dev. So that's the command that you would run if you didn't have the build tools, and if you run into a problem with the bundle command for installing the Postgres gem. So now that we have that out of the way, there is one other thing that we need to do here. We need to add in the AWS gem for our DigitalOcean spaces to work. And this is the gem AWS-SDK. And I'll save this, and hopefully my code formatter will... Nope, it did not. So let me just go ahead and fix this myself, of course. Basically, I'm just alphabetizing my gems here, you know, for my own sanity's sake. So now if I run a bundle command in my local application right here, it'll install all of these gems. Okay, so that takes care of bundling. The next step that we need to do is we're going to not do this Capistrano stuff right now. We're going to do the spaces first so that I don't forget. So the first thing we want to do is come into config and storage.yaml. And below this local, we want to add in a Amazon block. So this has a service of S3, an access underscore key underscore ID of rails.application.credentials.dig parentheses, and let me full screen this, AWS, comma, colon, access underscore key underscore ID. And that is the first one done. It also has a secret underscore access underscore key. And for this one, we're just going to copy this previous one, paste it up here, and we're going to change this to secret underscore access underscore key because the rest of this command is the same. The next thing we have to do is set the region. And for me, I chose NYC3 for my droplet. Of course, yours is going to change depending on whatever you picked. So I'm just going to type NYC3. And then for my bucket, it's restaurant. And the endpoint is https://nyc3.digitaloceanspaces.com. And that should take care of the storage.yaml file. The next thing is inside of our environments production, around line 39, I think. Yep, right here. We need to switch this to use Amazon instead of local. I just realized that my gem file didn't save, which is probably why this wasn't alphabetized. For some reason, I thought hitting Control and S would save it, but apparently I'm getting trolled all over the place today. So after we do that, the next thing is to edit our credentials. So for this, we can type all caps editor equals nano, and then Rails credentials :edit. So once you're in here, you're going to uncomment this AWS, this access key, and the secret key. You also have a secret key base right here, which you're going to be adding, or you're going to be grabbing later. So for this, your access key ID is the one that you had earlier in your Spaces API. So you came down here, you grab this access key, you paste in the access key. And then for your secret, that was the one after you hit regenerate key. That's the one you're going to use here. Okay, so that takes care of adding in the secret key. And the final thing we have to do now, I believe, is come into our, this is inside of one of our cap files. So now we can come back to the installation instructions from GoRails, and we'll run cap install all caps stages equals production. Oops, production. And that should create the files we need. So the first one we'll go into is the cap file. And inside the cap file, we will copy these 5 lines and we'll just paste them wherever you feel like it. You can then save this and you can close it. Oh, okay, there we go. The next one we have to go into is config/deploy.rb. So inside of config, we'll be looking for deploy.rb. So we can come up here and we're going to replace these 2 lines. Now for this, you'll see that it is asking for a GitHub repo, so we are going to have to create one. Okay, now that I've deleted my repository, in the top right, I'm going to hit plus, new repository. And oops, I'm going to name it restaurant_episode_6. I don't know why my grammar is so bad right here, mostly just to entertain myself, I guess. So once you have that done, you can go ahead and do a git init inside of your local folder. So we'll do git init, git add dot, git commit -am, and we'll say this is the init commit. Then we'll say git remote add origin, and then we can just copy this from up here. Of course, you can't copy the SSH if you don't have a SSH key attached to your GitHub account. I do, though. Oops, I probably forgot a space here. If you don't, you can just run the, or you can grab your key that you created earlier with your cat //ssh/idrsa.pub, and you can come into your GitHub profile, settings, and go into, let me actually open this in a new tab real quick. Your settings, your SSH, and you just add it in there. I'm not going to open that because I have stuff in there. But after we do the git remote add origin, you can then do a git push -u origin master. Okay, and now if we refresh this page, this will be good to go. We'll now grab this link to the SSH again. And then in here for set repo, we'll change this to be the GitHub repo that we just created. And the application is going to be this restaurant episode 6 application. And we can now save this deploy.rb. And I think that's it for the Go Rails portion of this file. It looks like it. Unfortunately, we do also have our portion for setting up the DigitalOcean spaces. So for this, we're going to create a before so that we, before we do the deploy assets precompile, we want to do a deploy, and let me full screen this again, a deploy :yarn _install. And then we're going to do a namespace for deploy, oops, lowercase deploy, do. Then we have a description. And for this, we'll just say run the rake yarn install. And then we'll do a task yarn _install, do. On roles web, do. Within release _path, do. Execute cd release _path and yarn install -- silent space -- no progress space -- no audit space -- no optional. And now we should be good to save this. And now the last thing that we have to do, and we're also doing, this isn't for the DigitalOcean spaces. Sorry, I don't know why I said that, if I even said that. It's been a long night. It's like noon and my night is still going. We're doing this for the Webpacker so that we can have the assets we can have the yarn install happen before we do the assets precompile. So the last thing we have to do to make sure that we have all of the assets available, namely the stuff inside of our JavaScript packs src application.scss. So this is the thing that's importing Bootstrap. So if you want Bootstrap to work in your production, you need to come into your app, views, layouts, application.html.erb. And like right below this JavaScript link tag, we need to say style sheet _pack _tag. And we want this to be from src/application, comma, media is all. And this was one of the things that we found out in the Discord server that I was doing wrong. I didn't have this, so my Bootstrap was not working, but it was only the style sheets that weren't working. Like if I went to my server, I could still use jQuery. So that's kind of what tipped us off that this was the issue. So I think that's it for the specific stuff for the droplets and stuff. That's a lot of stuffs in one sentence. The last thing we have to do is come into config, deploy production.rb. So let's do that. Let's scroll down here to config, deploy production.rb. And we have to include this stuff. So for this, it's server, quote, and let me just go grab my droplet IP address again. This one right here. Paste this in, and then we'll come back to the Go Rails guide, comma, user is deploy, comma, the roles are %w, open brace, app, db, web. And then you can save that. Now the last thing we have to do is create this RB-envs. So for this, we come back to the server. So you can either SSH deploy at your IP address, or in my case, I'll just come over here to my other window. And then I'll say make dir /home nano/restaurant_episode_6. And then I'll say nano/home/deploy/restaurant_episode6/.rbenv-vars. And then we'll copy this, we'll paste it in here, and then we'll do the database for the Postgres. The user is deploy, and my password for this was just lowercase password. And instead of /my_app, we'll say restaurant_episode_6. Obviously replace this with whatever yours is. I didn't use MySQL, so I'm going to get rid of this by using Control and K. And then for the master key right here, this one you are pasting in from over here. So you come into your config master.key, grab it, and paste it in here. Oops, I didn't actually copy it apparently. There we go. And then for the secret key base, you need to come over to your regular application, and you need to do your editor equals nano rails credentials edit. And I got rid of my AWS stuff. It's still up here. I just didn't want to show you guys that because, you know, I'm a dirty little secret keeper. And then you want to copy the secret key base, and I'm going to hit Control and X and then N to exit without saving. And then you come back over to your deploy restaurant and you get rid of this and you just paste in your secret key base, which is good. And then if you have Stripe, you can put in your public and private keys in here if you'd like. I do not, but I'll just hit Control O and enter to save, and then Control and X to exit. And now that that's done, what we can do is we can run the cap production deploy. And assuming I did everything correctly up until this point, we should get an error almost instantly about GitHub. It would also help if I ran this from our local server. So come back to your actual computer. So Control D to exit this, or just come into your computer, and then we'll run cap production deploy. And hopefully this will yell at us that we need to, or that we can't do git. Yeah, git at github.com, permission denied, public key. We don't have a public key on our server that we've added to our GitHub account. So in the same way that I said we need to add a public key to our GitHub account from our local computer to be able to push to the git at github.com :whatever your username is, we need to do the same thing here. So the way you can do this is you can type ssh-keygen, hit enter, and then just hit enter again, and it'll put it inside of your .ssh, and I'm not going to do a passphrase. And then I'll do cat-tilde/.ssh/id_rsa.pub. I'll grab this, Control-Shift-C for me, because I have my my config set up in my settings to be able to copy that. And then I can come over to my profile and settings, and then SSH and GPG keys. And I've just, you know, grabbed that and deleted all that, so there's nothing to see there. And then for this, I'll just call this restaurant server, and then I'll add the SSH key. Okay, and now that we've done that, I guess I can probably close this, I assume. I'll just clear this terminal, and I'll come back to our local server, or our local computer, and I'll run cap production deploy again, and hopefully this doesn't blow up and this works as we expect it to. Okay, now that that's done, let's try to go to our IP address and see what happens. Okay, so we're running into a problem with the Phusion Passenger, so let me just do a, let me see if I can figure out what's wrong with it. Oh, right here. In the root of our application, we need to change this .ruby-version to be 2.7.1. So let's go ahead and let's do that, and then we'll exit out of here. Let's go back to our main file, and we'll do a git status. We'll also add in some of those other changes that we did that apparently I forgot to commit. We'll do a git add .git commit -am change version commit cap changes, or I guess this isn't cap changes. This is like make. Oh, actually, that's a good point. I think I forgot something. Let's go into our config and deploy.rb Yeah, we have to come into this linked DIRs, and in addition to the ones that we have here, we need to add in public/packs and, oops, node_modules. So we'll add that in. Hopefully this will save. Our Ruby version is now 2.7.1. That's good too. Let's now come into our terminal and we'll do another git status. We'll do git add dot git commit -am. So what did we do here? We changed Ruby versions, and we added Webpacker to Capistrano deployment or something. And then we'll do a git push. And the reason we're doing this is because when Cap puts the files onto the server, it's doing that with the git. That's why we added git to the Capistrano files. So if you don't push these changes like I didn't do here, this stuff didn't actually get put onto the server when we did our Cap production deploy. So we're going to do this again, and we'll see if this gets rid of our error in the or when we go to the server, and also if we can even like get through this because something was wrong in the files that we didn't commit the first time. Like if there's a typo, this would be the time when we would figure that out, and then we would have to go figure out, you know, how we managed to break everything in such a terrible way. Okay, so nothing seems to have broken, so that's good. But if we come to our server, oh my god, it actually worked. I'm so happy right now. I can't even describe it. It takes literally over an hour to do one of these production videos sometimes. So let me just go into the menu where there's nothing in here, of course. The catering page works, more info works, and there is no customer review page yet. If we come into products, we're going to hopefully run into an error. Yeah, okay, so we're going to be doing a follow-on episode where we clean up some of these issues. Right now, we're getting an error because there is no category yet, and when we go into the products, we have that thing in the form for the select your category thing. So instead, we're going to go into /categories, create a new category, and we're going to create a pizza category, and we'll say it tastes good, dough. And we'll set the display to be true, and we'll hit create category. And you can see, oh, okay, I think I understand what happened there. I think it did actually get added to the database, but what's happening is we have to change this. So right now the cache block is around the entire application, which is obviously not ideal for what we've decided to do here, because originally it was just going to be 5 static pages, but that's not the case anymore. So we're going to remove this, and then we'll come over to our application again, and we'll say git status. Okay, so we got to do a git add dot git commit -am fix caching bug for production, git push, and now we can do another cap deploy or cap production deploy command. This does always take a little bit to do, but while this is running, I can sort of run through a few things with you guys. So the first one is, some of you might know that when you use active storage in production, it creates links, and the links are not permanent. They have an expiration, generally between 5 to 15 minutes. That is really not ideal for Google's SEO. So if you're trying to create like a website that ranks high on Google in a competitive niche, you're going to have problems with active storage. Now, the good news is, after about 10 hours last night in the Discord, and this is done now so we can refresh, and you'll see right here that fixed our issue. After about 10 hours, we did manage to find that the issue, or one of the issue trackers, resulted in a pull request that did get merged, but not in time for Rails 6. However, in Rails 6.1, this issue will be resolved. And the way it's resolved is you'll have access to a public URL and a private URL. So right now, if you want to do that, you have like @product.service_URL, which you're not supposed to use. Instead, what you'll have is a private _URL for stuff that you don't want, like, open access to, so that'll expire. You'll also have a public _URL, which is what you'll be able to use for like if you need stuff to be indexed in a search engine. So I just thought I'd cover that real quick because, it is important that you guys know that. But now this category works, which is good. So let's come over to our products and let's try to create a new Okay, so the issue here, I went into the nano current log production.log on the server to see what this error is, and then I did alt and / to go to the bottom. And we'll talk about the tail command in a second here. But as you can see here, it's the product ID or product category ID does not exist, so we do have to fix that. And we can do that by coming over to our local version of the code. And if we come into app, views, and I think it's menu products.html. No, this is actually in the form. So products form. We need to come down to the bottom, and around this wrapper, what we want to say is if product.category.nil ? Then default _cat equals category.first, else it'll equal @product.category, I think. And then we want to grab this default cat, replace this @product.category ID, and then down here we'll just say end, and we'll save this and we'll see if this worked. Now you could of course test this on your local server. So let's come over here and let's do a Rails db:/migrate command to migrate the database. And then once this runs, we'll try to do a Rails s command and see if everything works from our local version of the code, so that we're not constantly pushing changes. So let's do a Rails s, and then I'll open up a new tab and I'll say localhost port 3000. And hopefully this starts up soon. My computer is under quite a bit of stress because, again, I record for this long. It's it's liable to start trying to catch on fire. So let's go to categories first. We do have a seeded database apparently already, so that's good. I didn't realize that this was a seeded version. So let's go over to products then. And let's see what happens if I click. So if I click on show right now, that's good. If I go to edit, that also works. So now let's go over to categories and let's just delete all three of these. Okay, so we're going to come back into the categories. I went into the category.rb. I don't know if I showed this or not. And I switched this to be has many products, comma, dependent, colon, and then colon, delete all. And now we'll come over here and we'll try to destroy one of these. And now it's working. So we had to do, before it was just blank. You could also try destroy, but you need cascading delete for this, I think. So that's why I went with delete _all. So that lets us delete these categories, which is good because that was a bug we were having, and we do need this to be functional if we're, giving this to Frank. So now let's come over to our products page and let's see if this has fixed. It looks like this has fixed our products issue, but I'm not seeing the drop down for selecting a category. So I'm not really sure why that's not here. So let me get back to you guys. Okay, so I've done another change here just to clean this up. So in the form, we have the category select option set up like this. So we still have the if category.nil, then default category equals category.first, else product.category. But the other thing I did was I went into the products controller. And at the top here, I created a before action to check the categories. And I'm only doing this for the new, the create, and the edit. And in the private area down here, I create this check categories method. And I say redirect to the new category path if the category.count is equal to 0. So if no category exists, let's redirect to the new category path. Now, I'm not sure how redirect to will work on the production side of things, but I guess we'll see once we deploy. So for now, if we come in here and we click new product, this should, yeah, it'll redirect us to the new category. Now you could also add in an alert when you get redirected here that says please make a category before making a product. But for now, let's just say pizza. It's so good though. We'll set the display to be true. We'll create a category. Now let's come over to our products and let's hit new product. And we're still not seeing this right here. I'm not entirely sure why we don't see this when we do this. Okay, so I managed to get this category to appear. I'm sure I'm just tired. But I'll leave this in so you guys can see how I sort of problem solve. I switch this to a ternary operator, so I say default cat equals product.category.nil question mark. So if the product category is nil, set the category.first.id. If the product.category is not nil, then make this default cat the at product.category.id. And then we take this default cat and we put it in here where the old at product.id was. So this is now working if there is a category, which is pizza. So let's come back to categories because we want to test all of these, which is also why you should test. Remember, just because I don't do testing in these videos doesn't mean you shouldn't be testing stuff. So use this test folder. There's plenty of testing suites. You can test with Cucumber, RSpec, Factory Girl, all that other good stuff, and make a whole bunch of cool tests. So now we don't have any categories, so let's come back to our products and try to create one, and it'll redirect us here to the new category path. So this seems to be working. So let's kill the server, and let's do a git status. So we change the categories, the models.rb for the deleting the, or the cascading deletion, and we change this form. So let's do a git add dot, git commit -am, and we'll say fixed Dean's old broken form to work with, I don't know, logic. Obviously, don't do these commits if you're working in a professional capacity. This is just for entertainment value in a video that's probably around an hour long at this point. So we did that. Now let's do a cap production deploy, and let's see if this fixes this issue we're getting on the server. Okay, now that's done, let's come over to our server. First thing we'll do is we'll check if the homepage works. Looks like it does. The menu is not working. That's alarming. Let's come over to our categories. And I think I know why the menu is not working. The categories, we still have a pizza in here. So let's start off by destroying the pizza. That works. That's good. Let's come over to products. Let's try to create a new product. It redirects us to the new categories path. That's good. So let's create pizza. It's so good. Comma dough. We'll set display to be true. We'll create the category. Now, if I'm not mistaken, setting that to true did not fix the menu, so that's good. Let's come into products. Oops, products. And we'll try to create a new product. So this is working now. Now it's letting us create a pizza. So we'll say, I don't know, like double super meat deluxe. It's like Arby's. It has the meats, but like better. And we'll make this $11.99, which is a pretty good deal for a super deluxe Arby's meat thing. And we'll create this as a featured, and we'll give this an image. We'll go back, and we'll go to the show page. We're not actually showing the image in the show page. Of course we're not. Let's go to the home page, and let's go to the menu. So now the menu is working. So we do need to do some validations for making sure that the image is here. And like we'll just clean all this up in a future episode. But for now, you know, we're on a production server. You guys understand now how to use Capistrano and Git to get your files onto the production server, and how to work through some of these issues. Of course, you could also filter, but there's only one option here. You can add 3 of these to your cart. We'll also cover doing the Stripe checkout. I'm still trying to get my Stripe account verified, so I'm probably going to have to just link you guys to a video for the production side of things, or maybe I can get someone else to create a Stripe account for me that I can use. But if I come over to like the cart right now, we don't have a link to it, but the cart exists. You know, we have the cart updating and all that stuff. Like I can change this to one item, or like we can have, I don't know, 10 pizzas. We can also just remove the pizzas, come back to the home page. So all of this stuff is working on production now. I hope this helps. We're going to keep working on this. Just because it's the week 2 project doesn't mean that we're only doing it during week 2. I think my plan is if a project goes into another week, we'll just say that it was the project we started in week 2 and maybe not the one we finished in week 2. But that's going to do it for now. I'm going to, move over to the outro portion right now. And we can do a summary recap and all that stuff. So I'll see you there. Okay, finally made it to the end of the production video for this app. This was an adventure. I didn't think that, 2 weeks into this, I would already have learned so much. This was definitely an interesting project to take on. We're by no means done. Moving forward, we're going to be cleaning up the application. We need to do like the customer reviews and admin dashboard and stuff like that. But we'll be going through all of that stuff, and hopefully you guys are willing to stick with me for a few more episodes as we finish this and, release a project that we can at least sort of be proud of. Maybe not from a design, like a front-end design perspective, because I'm basically leaving you guys with some blank pages in some areas that you guys have to design, but the actual structure of the application might be something that you guys are proud of. But that's going to do it for me. If this video helped, please like it. This one took a lot of effort. If it didn't help, then, dislike it. And I'm so sorry. I tried my best. I'll see you guys in the next... But I'll see you guys in the next video where we'll hopefully cover some more of the topics. I'm not really sure what the schedule is from this point on. I was just really trying to get this video out in particular. I'm sorry it took so long, but yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.